This is going to be our fourth and last example. Grant invested $45,000 in a simple interest Canada savings bond that paid interest annually. If the future value of the Canada Savings Bond, or CSB, is $49,375 at the end of 7 years, what interest rate does the Canadian Savings Bond earn? So that's A part. B part is Grant cashed in the bond after 5.5 years because a house he had been admiring came up for sale, woohoo, and he needed a down payment. How much money did he have for the down payment? So what we're going to do in A is we are going to calculate the interest rate, because it says what interest rate. And we're going to use that interest rate in our B part of the question. But first things first, let's first find out what this interest rate is. So since it talks about a future value, we know that we're going to use our A equals P plus PRT, where A is the future value, P is the principal, R is the annual interest rate as a decimal, and T is the time in years. Now, look at this. We have our time in years, so we don't have to do any sort of fancy footwork with that. So, A, P, R, and T. Our future value is $49,375, because if the future value of the CSB is this amount, and the initial investment, Grant invested $45,000, so we're going to use that. $45,000. The interest rate, well, it's asking us what the interest rate is, so I don't think we're going to get that in the question. And our time, and our time is going to be 7 years. So let's plug in what we know into the formula right here. So we know that the A is 49,375 equals, instead of P, we're going to put 45,000, my bad, plus the principal, 45,000, times R, which we don't know, times T, which is 7. Now, what we're going to do is, let's just simplify it a bit before we start moving stuff around. So 49,375 equals 45,000 plus, if we simplify this, we get 315,000 R. This is what we need to isolate here because it's attached to the R through multiplication, so we're going to subtract 45,000 from both sides. In that case, we get 4,375 equals 315,000 R. To get R by itself, since R is multiplied by 315,000, we're going to undo it by dividing both sides by that. So we're ending up with an R value that equals 0.0138, repeating. So it goes 0.0138888888888 forever. So this means we can round this. If we want to round it, we would say R equals 0.0139, because the 8 beside it rounds it up to 9. Or we can say it as a percent. So it's 1.39%. That is what our interest rate is going to be. Now let's move on to the second one here. It says Grant cashed in the bond after 5.5 years. So let's set up this question again. How much money does he have for his down payment? So what's our future value when the time is 5.5 years and the interest rate is 1.39%? So let's just write down our formula again. A equals P plus PRT. We can almost make a song out of that. And for this new question, we actually, oh, let me just move this back a little bit. We can actually, we actually want to solve for A. What's the future value? When the principal is 45,000 and the interest rate is, remember we need to use this as a decimal, so 0.0139, and time, instead of 7 years, being 5.5 years. Now a few of you are going to be like, hold the phone, it's paid out annually, but it's 5.5 years. Now the cool thing about a Canada Savings Bond is that you can cash in your Canada Savings Bond before the anniversary date. However, you forfeit any interest that builds from that anniversary point. So it says right here that the interest is paid annually. So yes, he can take it out after 5.5 years, but he's only gonna collect interest on 5 years. Okay, so yes, he has it in for 5.5, but since the last time that interest was paid out was at 5 years, we're going to use the interest, we're going to use the time as 5 years. So let's put this into our equation here. So A equals P, which is 45,000 plus 45,000 times that interest rate that we calculated, 0.139. I'm just going to move this over just so that I have a little bit more room. And again, we're not going to use 5.5 because it gets paid out annually. We can only use 5 because that's the last time the interest was paid out. So we get our A equaling 45,000 plus 3,127.50. So then we get a future value of 48,127.50. So he will only collect interest on it for 5 years because it's paid out annually, and this is how much he would have for the down payment. Let's just summarize as a final little thing the equations that we learned. Today we learned that I equals PRT. This is when calculating simple interest. We also learned A equals P plus PRT. This is the future value of a simple interest investment. And we also learned the rate of return is interest over principal.